Can a slim and stylish phone still hold up when it comes to battery life? That's the big question many people had about the Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge when it first got announced. With just a 3900 mAh battery, expectations weren't exactly high. Compared to its siblings in the S25 lineup, this number looked a bit small. So naturally, people wondered, can this phone actually last through a full day without needing a charge halfway through? Now that proper battery tests have been done, we finally have a clearer picture of how the S25 Edge performs in the real world. And to be honest, the results are pretty balanced. It's not the best, but it's definitely not the worst either. Think of it as being somewhere in the middle. Good enough for most people, but maybe not for heavy users. When we talk screen on time, the Galaxy S25 Edge delivered around 6 hours and 22 minutes. That's a bit lower than the standard S25, which came in at 7 hours and 6 minutes. The S25 Plus and S25 Ultra, thanks to their much larger batteries, 4,900 and 5,000 mAh respectively, performed noticeably better. But here's what's important. Despite having a smaller battery, the S25 Edge still puts up a decent fight in lighter usage situations. For example, in web browsing tests, the S25 Edge lasted about 16 hours and 40 minutes. That's actually a little above the flagship average of 16 hours and 23 minutes. So if your daily use mainly includes scrolling through websites or social media, this phone holds up really well. When it comes to watching videos, it lasted around 7 hours and 44 minutes, which is below the average of 10 hours and 8 minutes. Not great, but still okay for casual streaming. For gaming, it reached 9 hours and 38 minutes, slightly under the 10-hour average, but not bad for a phone that's clearly designed with size and comfort in mind. It's also worth noting how it compares to some other well-known phones. The iPhone 16e only managed around 6 hours and 4 minutes of screen time. The Galaxy A35 wasn't much better, coming in at 6 hours and 12 minutes. The S25 Edge even stays close to the Galaxy S24 FE, which recorded 6 hours and 20 minutes. So in that light, the S25 Edge is far from a disappointment. It's actually ahead of several mid-range phones and matches older flagships. Of course, if you're someone who wants maximum battery life for all-day gaming, long video streaming sessions, or constant multitasking, the S25 Edge might not be your first pick. The Plus and Ultra models offer longer screen times but are also heavier and thicker. Samsung clearly aimed to make the S25 Edge a sleek, lightweight option, and in doing that, they had to compromise a bit on battery size. But that trade-off doesn't make it a bad phone. It just means it's made for a different kind of user. So who is this phone really for? If you care more about having a compact device that fits easily in your hand or pocket, and you're okay with charging your phone at the end of the day, the Galaxy S25 Edge could be the right fit. It's not trying to win the battery life race, but it's also not giving up easily. It does enough to get through a day of moderate use, and that might be all that many people need. We'll continue testing the Galaxy S25 Edge in daily use to see how it handles more varied tasks outside of lab conditions. So if you're curious about how it performs over time, especially with updates and real-life usage, stay tuned for our full review. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Got any questions or want us to test something specific? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.
Could Apple be getting ready to cut ties with Qualcomm? It's looking more and more likely, especially with fresh hints pointing to a major shift in the upcoming iPhone 17 lineup. Apple has been working behind the scenes for years to develop its own modem chips, and now it seems like the company is finally prepared to put that work into action. Recently, during Qualcomm's earnings call, their chief financial officer revealed something that caught a lot of attention. He said Qualcomm expects to provide chips for only around 70% of the iPhone 17 models. That's a noticeable drop, and it clearly shows that Apple is beginning to rely less on Qualcomm's technology. So what does this mean for the new iPhones? Based on what analysts are saying, Apple's own modem, rumored to be called the C1, will likely be used in the regular iPhone 17 and a new model that might replace the current Plus version, possibly named iPhone 17 Air. Meanwhile, the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max are expected to continue using Qualcomm's chips for a little while longer. This wouldn't be Apple's first test run. Last year, there were reports that Apple quietly tested its in-house modem on a model called the iPhone 16e. It wasn't part of the main lineup and gave Apple a chance to experiment without risking major sales or customer satisfaction. From what insiders have shared, the results were promising. While the C1 modem may not have outperformed Qualcomm's version in speed, it offered stable performance and possibly even better battery efficiency. That's a big win, especially for users who care about long battery life. Apple's strategy here feels very familiar. Just like the company switched from Intel processors to its own M-series chips in Macs, like the N1 and M2, it seems to be following the same path with modems. Making its own hardware allows Apple to fine-tune everything for better performance, smoother integration, and more control over the entire device. Now, some people might wonder why Apple doesn't just switch all models to its own modem right away. The answer likely comes down to performance and user expectations. The Pro models are typically aimed at power users, and Qualcomm's chips are still slightly ahead when it comes to speed and overall reliability. Apple may want a little more time to polish its modem before pushing it into high-end models. There's also the new iPhone 17 Air to think about. It's expected to be thinner and lighter, which usually means a smaller battery. That's where Apple's modem might come in handy. If it really does help improve battery efficiency, it could be a smart move for this slimmed-down version of the iPhone. But beyond the tech, there's also a financial reason for Apple's shift. Qualcomm holds a lot of patents, and licensing those technologies is expensive. By making its own chips, Apple can save money and reduce its dependence on another company's intellectual property. It also gives Apple more freedom to design the iPhone the way it wants, without needing to build around someone else's hardware. Other companies have done this too. Samsung, for example, uses its Exynos chips in some models and also supplies modems to brands like Google. Apple moving in this direction is not just about cutting costs, it's also about owning more of the entire iPhone experience. Looking ahead, if things go smoothly with this year's rollout, we might see Apple using its own modems across all iPhone 18 models next year. That would be a huge shift, not just for Apple, but for the entire mobile industry. Qualcomm would lose one of its biggest clients, and Apple would take another major step toward full hardware independence. What do you think about Apple building its own modem? Do you trust them to match or even beat Qualcomm's performance in the long run? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you like this breakdown, make sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more updates on Apple and the latest in tech. Apple had a bold vision for the iPhone 17 Air, creating the first fully portless smartphone. However, those plans didn't go as expected. The company ultimately decided to abandon this approach, largely due to regulatory concerns, particularly in the European Union. This device, which was intended to replace the iPhone Plus, was originally meant to rely entirely on wireless charging and data transfer, eliminating the need for any physical ports. But after careful consideration, Apple chose to take a step back, mainly to avoid potential legal complications. The idea of a smartphone without ports has been a topic of discussion for years. Some users still miss the headphone jack, while others feel that if a company is going to remove ports, it should fully commit rather than forcing users to rely on additional accessories like adapters. According to Apple analyst Mark Gurman, the iPhone 17 Air was supposed to be a major move toward a future without ports. However, Apple changed course likely because of the challenges it could face in the European market. Regulations in the EU have already pushed Apple to make significant adjustments. The most notable example is the transition from the Lightning port to USB-C, a change Apple made to comply with European standards. Additionally, Apple had to open up its ecosystem to allow third-party app stores, something it had resisted for years. With strict regulations already affecting its business, Apple likely wanted to avoid the risk of launching a portless phone that could later be deemed non-compliant. Apart from dropping the portless concept, Apple also made changes to the phone's sides. The original plan was